Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we're releasing a bonus episode. This is my recent appearance on the Fabulously Keto Podcast, hosted by Jackie Fletcher. This was episode 159. It was recorded on September 28, 2023, and it's just simply titled Casey Ruff, Boundless Body. I like the title, right to the point. We are also going to be hosting an episode with Jackie as a guest on our show. That's actually coming out this week, so that will be episode 539. So be on the lookout for that. She's got an awesome story about how she found ketogenic diets and how it really helped her fix her health, which is amazing. This was a really unique podcast. I had a great time with her. She asked really good questions. I've been following her podcast for a very long time, and she's been putting content out in this space for quite a while. And like I said, be on the lookout for that episode featuring her, as we'll be able to talk about her amazing transition and how she was able to heal herself and why she is out there sharing this message with everybody. I also got to leave my top 3 tips for living healthy and fit. So be on the lookout for that. You'll encounter that in this episode. So as always, be sure to subscribe to their show. Be sure to follow them. Give them a rating and review on Apple. It's just the easiest way for any of us to get this podcasting message out to more people. Our intention is to help more people. And so to be able to do that, we need the more, ratings and reviews and all that stuff. It just absolutely really helps. So without further ado, here is my appearance on the Fabulously Keto Podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by FATT, F-A-T-T, a range of keto on-the-go snacks including cookies, brownies, chocolate bites, bars, Fat Jacks and muffins. Fat snacks are delicious, natural and always free from sweeteners, fillers and seed oils. Find Fat Snacks at www.livefatt.com. That's LIVEFATT.com. Use the code FABULOUSLY10, that's 10, to give an extra 10% off one-time purchases, not valid on Subscribe and Save. Welcome to the Fabulously Keto Podcast, aimed at improving health, vitality and quality of life, eating real food in a ketogenic lifestyle. I'm Jackie Fletcher and I'm based in the UK.
And I'm Louise Reynolds, an Aussie currently based in Bangkok, Thailand.
Each week we will be bringing you guests who share their stories and discuss a range of topics which we hope will improve your health and well-being.
Many of the guests, like us, came to keto for weight loss and have stayed for their well-being, numerous health benefits, and because they are living their best lives. We hope you'll be inspired to incorporate these ideas into your own health journey so that you can feel better than you ever have before.
Thinking about starting keto? Take a listen to episode number 2, What is Keto and How to Start. Welcome to episode 159 of the Fabulously Keto Podcast. In last week's podcast and this week's podcast, I mentioned standing on one leg to brush my teeth. And I thought I'd just explain a little bit more about that. So I use an electric toothbrush so that makes it easier to do it. Now, it's not to say that you couldn't do it if you're using a manual toothbrush, but it might be a little bit more challenging. And I started doing this about 6 years ago. And when I started, I could barely do 30 seconds on each leg. But over time, I managed to increase the amount of time. So now I can do the full 2.5 minutes on one leg. And sometimes it's easier to maintain that balance, and others times I'm wobbling all over the place. The benefits include all the micro adjustments that your body has to make to keep you balanced. And this includes your brain and your muscles. So there's lots of mini adjustments going on within your muscle throughout your body, which of course comes from the brain to keep your balance. Nowadays, for the last 20 seconds, I close my eyes, and that takes it to a whole new level. What I do is I hover my hand over the edge of the basin. So I've got my fingers on one side of the edge of the basin and my thumb on the other. So the edge of the basin is in between my fingers and my thumb. And I'm not actually touching the basin unless I lose my balance. So I can catch myself with either my fingers if I fall to the right and my thumb if I fall to the left. I probably could just put my foot down in time, but I don't really want to take a chance on not getting that foot down in time and completely losing my balance and falling over. I'm practicing for 30 seconds, but I can't maintain that balance for more than a few seconds yet. But it's a work in progress, and my goal is to be able to balance for the whole 30 seconds with my eyes closed. I shall let you know how I get on over time. This week's guest is Casey Ruff. Casey was introduced to me by Tia Reid, and here's what Casey tells us. Casey Ruff has been a certified personal trainer since 2007. He successfully ran a metabolic testing program for a large gym and oversaw 13 programs in the West region. He has multiple certifications as a personal trainer, life coach, and performance enhancement specialist. With his nutrition coaching certifications, he specializes in low carbohydrate lifestyles, including ketogenic and carnivore diets. He has helped thousands of clients over 16 years learn how to achieve their best lifestyle through movement, lifestyle management, and proper diet. Together with Bethany, they created Boundless Body LLC during the 2020 pandemic. He is the host of 2 podcasts, Boundless Body Radio and the How to Make a Podcast. I like that. How to Make a Podcast. He lives in South Jordan, Utah, with his wife, Bethany, and their 2 dogs, Rex and Tucker, and their cat, Lily. In his free time, he loves to cycle, play hockey, and paddleboard. Let's go and hear from Casey. Welcome, Casey, to the Fabulously Keto Podcast. It's fabulous to have you with us today.
It's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And we always start with, where in the world are you?
Where in the world am I? So I am in the state of Utah. I'm currently in the Salt Lake Valley, which is Utah's capital city, and I'm in a suburb, so I'm about 20 to 30 minutes outside of downtown Salt Lake. It is a beautiful spot. I don't normally like to talk about that because it's getting way too busy. There's way too many people moving in. I always try to get people to go to Colorado, go to some other state. But yeah, the valley is truly like a valley. And so across the valley are the mountains. And so every single morning on my morning walks, I get to see the sunrise over the Wasatch Mountains. And it's just absolutely stunning. We're coming on, the end of summer at the time of recording. So the colors are just about to change. And it's so easy to get in the car and drive from here 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You can go to multiple different ski resorts, lots of different trails and trail systems. It's just spectacular. Between that and having a lake by my house where I can go paddleboard whenever I like, a neighborhood that I can go and walk, and lots of places to ride my bike. It's a really beautiful spot. And that's the last I'm going to talk about it because I don't want more people to move here.
So it reminds me of the Eagles song that says, call someplace paradise, kiss it goodbye.
I love it. Nice reference. I love it. I love the Eagles.
Yeah. So we'll come back to paddleboarding because I went paddleboarding for the first time in my life in July. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah, great.
So why don't you start by telling us your journey, how you came to low carb keto, go back as far as you need to.
So I kind of grew up more on the chubby side. My parents had to buy husky clothing and I didn't really understand what that meant, but I knew it wasn't like a good thing. I was also really interested in sports. And so I wanted to be...
Can you just explain to us what husky clothing is? Because here in the UK, that means nothing to us.
Yeah, Great point. It didn't mean anything to me either growing up. I didn't know what it meant. It's basically, and I don't know if they still even have this, but it's like bigger clothes for kids. Like it will be like kind of like wider to accommodate like, maybe overweight or kind of a chubby kid. Yeah. And when I was growing up, that vastly different, chubby kids then versus chubby kids now. Like maybe I was carrying an extra like 10 pounds where childhood obesity is a very serious problem now. So not eating, the right foods, standard American diet type thing, lots of cold cereal. And so it wasn't in the best shape, but I love sports. I played ice hockey, which I absolutely loved. Eventually I got into cycling, which I also loved. And so I understood that, to do those things, I needed to be strong. And so I started exercising and started to develop a passion for that. And it was much later down the road, several years later into my cycling career, that I was looking for a place to train in the off season. And I found a big corporate gym that had opened up by my house. And it was a bit expensive, but I could barely afford it. And I started training there for cycling. And I started to watch the personal trainers and how they were working with their clients. I was studying architecture in college at the time. But watching these personal trainers, it looked really fun and engaging. They were also using heart rate monitors, which is something that I was pretty adept at using since I was using it for cycling for several years. And so I went into the manager and asked him what I needed to do to get a job as a personal trainer. He told me which online certification to get. So I hit the books pretty hard for the next few months and ended up passing my certification. I started working for that corporate gym in March of 2007. And that started my, now 16 and a half year career in personal training and nutrition coaching. With my background in heart rate training, I had a unique opportunity also to learn how to use what is called a metabolic cart. So a metabolic cart is a device that's, this cart you kind of push around, or a trolley in the UK that has a laptop on it, which is connected to a box, which is connected to an umbilical cord, which is then attached to a mask that somebody is wearing. And as the person is breathing in and out, it's collecting data from the respirations, and we can tell certain things about people's metabolisms, which is kind of cool. Like if we know the total volume of air that's coming in and out, we have good correlations to tell you how many calories you might be burning, whether you're resting, whether you're exercising at different intensities, whether you're going all out, or whether you're just going on a walk. We could measure all of that stuff. And so I was trained on how to use that. Eventually, I took over the program in the western region of the United States. And so I was traveling to Denver and Phoenix and California to train other trainers on how to use this and how to interpret the results. And so we could do that test, like I said, either resting or we could do it exercising, and that would give us different data. And in the beginning, especially back in 2007, the only thing we were really aware of was calories, right? Like, so if you came in, you did a resting metabolic assessment, and I told you that at rest, your body was burning 1,500 calories per day. We could, do math and say, okay, you're also active, so you burn an additional 400 calories, then you do a workout, that's another 200 calories. We'd have sliders that you could, say what's your goal. Okay, you want to lose weight, so let's make sure that you're burning this many calories, and then let's just make sure you're eating less calories, so there's a caloric deficit. And if you just do the math, it's pretty simple. Like you can just make that deficit be, added up to be like 1 pound a week or 2 pounds a week if somebody was very motivated. And, they would do the diet and try to stick with it, and nobody could stick with it. And we would just do the thing that Jason Fung kind of talks about, where we're blaming the victim. We would just say like, oh yeah, of course you're not doing this good enough. You didn't count right. You cheated, you're craving other foods. And so we really didn't have a very good understanding of how to use the equipment for the better. And our machines were pretty cool because they went one step further. And rather than just measuring the overall volume of air that's coming in and out, which will tell you, again, the number of calories that you're burning, our analyzers would also measure the amount of carbon dioxide and fat that are exchanged in the body. And so that will take you one step further to not only know how many calories somebody was theoretically burning, but if somebody was burning a certain percentage of the calories from our two energy sources. So fat and carbohydrates are the two energy sources that we can run on. And again, initially, way back when we first got started with this, if we did a measurement and found out that somebody was burning 80% carbohydrates, we would just tell them like, great, well, you need to eat about 80% carbohydrates. Kind of match your diet to that way of thinking. I can tell by your smile that you understand that doesn't really work. But we didn't know that. And we would just, again, blame people for not taking our advice. And it was over time that I started to learn that we could actually manipulate things in exercise, but also more importantly, the diet, to actually change the numbers. Like for that person who's burning 80% carbohydrates, what that person's day-to-day life is. Like they are eating every few hours. They're hungry all the time. They're probably really moody, high cravings, all of those kinds of things because they're burning such a finite fuel source. We don't store very many carbohydrates, just a teeny tiny amount. But if we can change the diet and accomplish what most people want to do, which is burn off their stored fat, we could do that by alternating the diet. And so, initially around 2012, it was learning that you could feed endurance athletes things like cream and bacon and butter, and their endurance will be better. Later I came across an article by a certain Nina Teicholz, author of The Big Fat Surprise. And so really realizing like, wow, like the foods that we have been telling people are bad for them could actually be the healthiest foods on the planet. I eventually got my nutrition certification. That actually set me back a little bit in 2017 because it was more structured kind of learning, and it was coaching people with nutrition with behavior change. And so we were, I would switch back to promoting like a mixed diet with lots of whole grains, lots of vegetables, eat the rainbow. Fruit was okay. There's ways that you could measure out exactly how many of each of those things to recommend for somebody. And, it just didn't work. It was so frustrating because you put people on certain programs and computer programs and they would all quit. Nobody saw sustainable results. And as a personal trainer, like that's why you wake up in the morning. You want to help people. You want people to get healthy. And so, yeah, that was kind of the beginning parts of me starting to get into this kind of space, the low carbohydrate and ketogenic space.
So what happened to make you think, we need to be burning more fat than carbohydrates? What was the switch?
For me personally, it was really eye-opening, again, with like endurance sports. So as I started to accept the fact that fat was okay and it could actually help me, I understood that I could change my fat burning and carbohydrate burning. The only experience I had when I was competitive in cycling is you eat a ton of carbohydrates. You have oatmeal with brown sugar and you have the bananas and you go out on your ride, and constantly during your ride, it's the bottles of sugar water and Cytomax and all the gels and you just have to eat the whole time because, again, you can't store very many carbohydrates. It's very finite. And if most people understand what it feels like to bonk, that's what it feels like to run out of carbohydrates. That's what happens if you go too hard, too fast. And so the immediate benefit for me, adding in more fat and changing my fat burning ratios, increasing my fat burning, was I started to become not really reliant on carbohydrates while I was training. I could burn fat, which we all have tens of thousands or hundreds of calories of stored fat. And most people, like I said, don't want it anyway. They'd rather it be gone. And so by teaching my body to burn more fat, I could go out on endurance rides and not rely on carbohydrates. I was burning my own fat. And so that was the biggest benefit for me. I became a lot less hungry. Not many people were talking about intermittent fasting back then, but if you skipped a meal or skipped a snack in between clients, like it wasn't the end of the world. You were okay. So that's what I noticed with myself. And then as I started doing it with more people, the endurance athletes were able to perform longer and more comfortably. People that wanted to lose fat could do it more sustainably. And they didn't have to do it with calorie tracking, and they certainly didn't have to do it with lots of hunger and cravings. And so those are the beginning benefits that eventually pushed me to be a little bit more strict with things.
Yeah. In terms of what you're doing now, tell us a little bit about that.
So now I'm fully carnivorous. So I started my carnivore journey on April of 2019. It was a 30-day experiment, and I felt so good on day 31 that I decided to continue, and I really haven't stopped. I've had varying kind of, I guess, levels of strictness with that. And I say that, for the listener, like, I've been in health and fitness for like 16 and a half years. I've been in nutrition for a long time. If a carnivore diet sounds miserable or terrible or low carb sounds awful, like it is a progression. I had to progress through these things through many, many years. And I didn't even know much about keto until 2018 when, I was this was so we were using the metabolic carts, and that really helped me understand fat burning and sugar burning, how to manipulate that. At the same gym, we were also doing weight loss programs. And the gym learned that if they did a weight loss program that was 60 days long and they did it every single quarter, they would make a tremendous amount of money. People would sign up. They would do these contests. We would sit down with them and give them a big packet of information of lots of meals, lots of shopping lists. And so people would go to the store looking for like rutabaga and like arrowroot powder and all these like obscure ingredients, and then would bring them home and like, well, great, now what do I do with them? And so, it was, and we had to do a new one every single quarter. And just like practically, like for our own business, like we make money when we sell things, but you can't sell the same person the same program if it doesn't work. Like you could maybe do that like twice, maybe, but most people would do it once and then quit and say, well, that was stupid, and you wouldn't do it again. So every 3 months, you got to go find new people and try to convince them to do this stupid program that just doesn't work for hardly anybody. And we hated it. I absolutely hated it. And it was in 2018. Again, more bought in that fat is good. I sat down with somebody who's doing this contest. They were about to start, and he described his diet. It was probably north of 60% carbohydrate. I mean, this guy was like waking up in the middle of the night to eat cereal and skim milk. And I just said, dude, like get some fat in some of your meals. Let's see if that at least makes you a little bit more full and satiated and helps take away the carbohydrate cravings. And so he did. And he went away and he came back a few days later and said, okay, I've already lost a few pounds. What is this keto stuff? And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like I've seen it on magazine covers at the grocery store, but I don't really know that much about it. And sure enough, this guy did great in the contest. He won. So we got recognized for having a winner. And when my wife and I, who work for the same corporation, when we had the next weight loss contest coming around that we had to prepare for, that we were complaining about, we said, like, why don't we do our own thing? What if we kind of went rogue and let's not give people those packets of information with all those ridiculous shopping lists? Maybe there's a better way to do this. And so we found low carbohydrate meal plans. We gave them to people rather than the other stuff and said, like, look, there's no limitation. You can eat these as much as you like. If your family isn't doing this, add some rice or potatoes or carbohydrates. Your kids can have whatever you like, but these are fun meals, like, taco bowls or pizza on the weekends. It's like they were like fun recipes and they weren't that difficult. And we saw tremendous success every single time that we did that up until the pandemic. People would literally just melt away. We had a body fat scale that would measure, the fat that people would lose. We got, of all the times we tracked everybody, it would be nearly 100% fat that people would lose by following low carbohydrate meal plans. It was sensational. And so when that happened, I started to see something that I could not unsee any longer. Like, I'm giving people this advice to eat whole grains and vegetables and fruits and lean proteins and have olive oil, and it's not working for anybody. Yet, if I give somebody the opposite and say, focus on animal fats and proteins, eat to full satiety, don't count anything, like, it's like pretty much working for everybody. Like, I don't care what people do. I don't care if people are vegan. People can eat paint chips for all I care. Like, I don't care. I get paid to get people really good results. And so that was like the last time that I didn't obsess about this stuff. That was the last time I listened to music in my car. That was the last time I didn't think about, nutrition and ketosis and, carnivore diets. That was the last time that my life was not centered around that. Is completely changing. It's like you get this like passion. You want to just share this with everybody. And, it's been such a wonderful journey. And like I said, I transitioned over to carnivore in April of 2019. My biggest surprise was, I lost a few more pounds I didn't think I had to lose. But for me, it was my mental clarity was so incredibly different. 2 weeks on carnivore, I never realized I had as much anxiety as I had. And when that dropped away on carnivore and it was replaced by this feeling of just like calmness and like things didn't bother you as much, there's way less stress. Like, it was just wonderful. So that's what I'm doing today. We'll see if I'm doing it tomorrow, but so far it's been, 4.5 years. So probably likely.
Yeah. So, I've tried carnivore. I had tried carnivore a couple of times and I absolutely hated it. I never lasted. I was going to do 30 days both times and I never lasted more than 14 because I was so miserable. But then more and more people are becoming carnivore now, and to me they're glowing. You look at the camera now. I don't know if it's the Zoom thing, but everybody is glowing, and I thought, I need to try this again. So back in May, I ran a carnivore challenge. And I think we did it in my Facebook group, but I had a private group as well that people paid for. And so we did it. After 30 days, of the 8 people that were on the last call that we did, only because not everybody could attend, I said, who's staying carnivore? And everybody said, I am. So we all, I don't know how, I want to go back and check with them because that was back in June. I want to go back and check with them if they're still carnivore. I know some of them still are. And I am mostly. I'm not 100% perfect, but I would say I'm 95% animal carnivore only. So no fruits, no, I had 3 strawberries on Sunday or something like that.
Wow. I would very much call that a carnivore diet. My favorite definition of a carnivore in nature is really, a creature's diet is 25-30% coming from animal products. And so I think there is some wiggle room there. That's amazing. So I just got back from the Metabolic Health Summit. So I got to have lunch with Olivia Quadja. If you know her, she's amazing. I got to have lunch with Dr. Anthony Chafee was there from Australia. And so I can you see that and you're just like, it would be the Eagles, you know what I mean? Like all rock stars in our field. And I can tell you, it's not a Zoom filter. Like they really are just absolutely glowing. It's interesting in some of these conferences, you listen virtually, you know what those days are like. Those were long days. I mean, the presenters were on stage for an hour and 15 minutes each, not only doing their presentation, but taking questions. It's so interesting. Like when you look around at some of these things in the afternoon, people should be knackered by then. You know what I mean? Like they should be so tired, and everybody is calm and quiet and is listening and is asking great questions. I talked to Brian Lenskis about this. Like, what contrast this to like other medical conferences? He's like, it's not even close, not even a contest. And yeah, it's such a good point. The people that started carnivore and you ask them if they wanted to continue and they did. One thing that Dr. Sean Baker will do at some of these conferences is he'll say like, if we're wrong about cholesterol, like we're pretty comfortable at this point saying that cholesterol is not causative of heart disease. We don't know that, so we can't say that, but heading in that direction, but Dave Feldman's doing great research in that ballpark. But Dr. Baker says, let's just assume it's wrong. And let's say all of you are going to die of heart disease. How many people would continue eating the way that you're eating? And it's like 95. I would, if I died tomorrow, fine. But I would rather do that than go back to the way I was feeling before.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. And yeah, my goal, I don't know what your goal is, but my goal is to travel along in life and then just fall off the end of a cliff, sit down one night, go to sleep, and that's it. I don't want to be falling apart and not able to move, or as I was 6 years ago, struggling to climb the stairs, not able to bend down easily. I could. And then if I knelt down on the floor, I needed to haul myself up by resting on a piece of furniture or something. Whereas now I can put my hands on my head, sit down, stand up with my hands on my head. Those things, you almost, they're priceless, aren't they? You can't replace that. And so, like you say, if we're wrong, I'm happy with that. Go out fighting.
Yeah, I will be totally happy with that. It really is amazing, and it's so consistent that at a point you expect it. Like I expect you to answer the question, like, do you feel younger today than you did 6 years ago? I would expect you to say absolutely yes. If I ask the same question, do you feel younger today than you did even a few months ago before going back on carnivore and trying it again? I would expect you to say yes. And it's like everybody who's in this direction, even if you're not like super strict, like if you're moving towards this, you're feeling better and better and better. Like I love how Sean O'Mara says it. We've had him on our show where it's like aging should be awesome. Aging means you have more experience. You learn more things while staying healthy and being busy. And we should like respect our elders who are healthy and vibrant. And that should absolutely be a thing. And I think, again, moving in this direction, I think the delta between the people that are super healthy and the people that are super unwell is just going to get wider and wider and wider.
Yeah. And hopefully there'll be enough of us to say, hey, come on over here. It's really—
Come on over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on over. Exactly. Yep. I hope so too.
Yeah. So when you were working for the corporation, and then I think you set up on your own, did you, at some point?
We did, yeah. So my wife and I now own Boundless Body. So pandemic, I know was weird for all of us in the Salt Lake Valley. It's so weird. So I drove home. It was the weekend that things were kind of shutting down, and I was actually at Low Carb Denver as things were shutting down. So that was weird to be there, and people are flying home and canceling. And so had to drive back from Denver to Salt Lake. I stopped at Costco and found one of the last things of toilet paper. I don't know if you guys ran out of toilet paper in England, but that was a thing out here. A few days later, as we were placed on unemployment from the corporation that we were working for, we had an earthquake here. We had like a 5.4 earthquake in our valley. And so, I mean, imagine the stress, like what is going on right now? We had steady jobs. I had worked for that corporation for 13 years. My wife had worked there for 6 years. I ran that metabolic testing program. That was shut down before gym was because it required standing next to somebody on a treadmill with these masks that have concentrated respiration. So they wouldn't even let us do the tests anymore. And so, yeah, it was a really confusing and very stressful time being on unemployment. By the time the gym was about to reopen, it was pretty early, and we just didn't have a lot of clients who were traveling back to the corporate area that they were working at. People started working out from home and started enjoying it. They didn't have to drive anywhere. So we decided the best way forward was to start our own business. So we started Boundless Body in, I believe, July was our start date in 2020. And yeah, we do personal training. We built out our basement to be a Pilates studio. My wife works with myofascial tissue and helps get people out of pain. And then my side of things is more on the nutrition coaching as well. I'm doing personal training. So it's been a really fun journey. We haven't traditionally considered ourselves entrepreneurs. So a lot of this stuff is learning as we go. And it's been really fun and sometimes very challenging, but it's been great. And then it was a few months later, we started our podcast, which is Boundless Body Radio. So that's been a wonderful journey. And I'm so much looking forward to hosting you on there as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm looking forward to coming on. So let's talk about paddleboarding.
All right.
So is that it's something that's come up? You see it more and more over the last few years. I don't know about more than a few years ago whether we saw paddleboarding or not. I wasn't really aware of it. So I had to go for the first time in this July just gone, thinking that I wouldn't even be able to haul myself up onto a paddleboard because I'm still overweight. I'm still carrying too much weight. It just won't shift. So I thought I wouldn't be able to do that. And I've got two young boys, they're 20 years old, and I thought they'd be brilliant. But I was the one that stood up and stayed up for about 20
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so it's good fun.
That's fantastic. Where did you do that?
In Turkey, where the sea is lovely and warm.
Oh my goodness. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was good. Really clear blues. Like I'm going to show you, nobody else will be able to see this, but
wow.
This ring, the sea is that color.
Very, very blue, almost. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I've heard it's absolutely beautiful over there. Was it mostly flat water?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, my lake around here where I go paddleboard is very flat. Last year we took it up to a lake in the mountains, and it wasn't nothing like waves or anything, but just a motorboat goes by, and there's kind of a bit of like up and down in the water, and even that, like I wasn't that great at. I had to kind of like hold on once or twice. You think about people like Dr. Danny Vega. I'm not sure if you've come across his work. He works a lot in the ketogenic and carnivore space as well. He does it in the ocean like every single day, and so you're actually like riding in the waves, getting onto waves, riding waves like you're surfing them. That would be a whole nother ballgame. I am not ready for that. Sounds like you might be though.
No. It was quite a struggle when we did get a few little waves, but they were little waves, like 6 inches or something.
That's great. Good for you.
So how long have you been doing paddleboarding and how often do you do it?
Yeah, it's probably been about a decade. So yeah, our neighborhood has this kind of development. It's pretty unique around here. It's a place we love, and they built a lake like 10, 15 years ago. And yeah, over time they allowed residents to have like unmotorized vehicles on there, and it always looked fun to me. It looked like a crazy workout. And so I decided to buy a really inexpensive paddleboard and absolutely loved it. So I ditched that one and got a much better one. And, 20 minutes is kind of a lot. And it's definitely a core exercise. Like, did you feel your core and like balance and stability and that kind of thing? Was 20 minutes enough to make you pretty tired?
Yeah. We'd gone out for a day on the boat. And so I did a circuit of this boat, which was maybe 40, 50 foot long. So it took me a while.
Okay.
I'm balancing. And so, yes, I think it must be brilliant for balance, because whenever you balancing, so I tend to stand on one foot when I brush my teeth. So I do 1 foot in the morning and 1 foot in the evening. So my balance is fairly good, but it's still not brilliant. But with that, and you're having to balance, and all the muscles in your body are adjusting the whole time. They're really working
whole time. Yeah. No, you're right. I think it's wonderful for balance. I love what you're doing with standing on 1 foot and switching it for morning and night. I try to encourage people to do that all the time with like our personal training kind of stuff. So yeah, good for you for doing that. And yeah, you would get obviously with anything, like if you had a bit more practice, you would be up to an hour, like really quick. It's just a different way to see things. I think it's even different than a boat when you're actually like on the water. I walk around this lake every single day. To be actually on the water and to see it from that perspective is just, it's so different. And even from time to time, just to like, I'll just sit, just come down and sit and just not go anywhere and maybe watch some birds or watch the wind through the trees. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And yeah, it's been really fun activity for me to do. I should do it a lot more often. The lake is like a mile from my house. It's very, very close. So to throw my board on my roof and just drive it up there would be very, very quick and easy. And I need to do it more than I do.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. So has your personal training, how you train people or how you help people, has that changed with time?
Yes, vastly. Thank you for the question. Vastly different. It might sound weird coming from a personal trainer, but I'm pretty comfortable at this point saying that exercise is just not good for weight control. I don't think exercise is a really good way to control somebody's weight and especially people trying to lose weight. So I'll go back to some of the things I learned with the metabolic cart is what we learned over time. Like, again, we were adjusting people's calories and things like that. But what we learned is that if you had a deficit that was too far, meaning like if your resting metabolic rate was 1,500 calories and you were eating 1,200 calories, like less than you were even, burning at rest, you would crash your metabolism. So whatever diet you were on might work in the beginning, but it would slow down over time and work less and less and less. And then unfortunately, when you've crashed your metabolism, your body's set to be really miserly and really want to hold on to any calories. And so that's when you see the weight regain. And it's always like where you started plus 10 and compound that with every single time you try that. And it just makes the problem worse and worse and worse. It's sad that most people's exercise programs is actually creating the overweight that's going to come. That's the best way to do it. The best way that I can get people to gain a bunch of weight is make their bodies be very, very hungry and make them want to save their calories. And they literally slow down. People feel colder. They are less energetic. And so we kind of knew that right away. And so, doing chronic amounts of, moderate to high intensity cardio, we used to recommend. I don't think that works very well because of that metabolic lowering effect. So this is why we promote strength training for people, lots of different forms of strength training. But strength training does the opposite effect of what, chronic cardio does, where chronic cardio makes you efficient with your calories, meaning you're saving calories. Strength training makes you inefficient with your calories, means you're burning calories all the time. Just to have muscle on your body, that muscle is requiring calories and can actually boost your metabolic rate, which is fantastic. And so that's what most people want. They want to get rid of all their calories, and having a high metabolism means that you've got lots of energy. You're not really all that hungry because the body knows it's being provided for by the fat that it's already stored. And so strength training is very, very important. There's lots of different modalities that people can do, but the really kind of game-changing thing that I experienced in my career with how to perform strength training was coming across the work of Dr. Doug McGuff is his name, who wrote a book with John Little that's called Body by Science. Now, when I was first certified as a personal trainer, we learned how to do what is called functional training. Functional training means I look at all the activities that you do in a day, all the sports that you play, and I say, great, now we're going to take those movements and activities into the gym, and we're going to try to mimic that stuff. So you play football, real football, not American football, real football, soccer. You play football. I'm going to make you swing your legs using a cable like you're kicking a ball, or maybe you're, on moving laterally with a weight attached to your hip, or you're doing what looks like, football, but in the gym. And the argument from this book was to say that, like, if you want to be good at a sport or a skill, you need to go and play and practice that skill where it's supposed to be played. Like, I play ice hockey. I can't mimic ice hockey on a tennis court or in the grass. Like, I have to go to an ice rink with my buddies and play in the context of how the sport is played to actually improve myself in hockey. I can't do that in the gym. So the argument is use the gym to make yourself really, really strong. And you can do that actually with a pretty minimal amount of time. I recommend more than this, but he recommends really no more than about 15 to 20 minutes in an entire week. And doing a very limited amount of exercises where you're only really doing one set. Again, I think it's beneficial to do a little bit more than that. But what he's doing is doing a set. It's called super slow as a methodology. And so you're moving a weight, usually in a machine, very, very slowly. So we, as trainers, we talk about tempo oftentimes, and tempo is the time it takes you to push a weight up. We call that a concentric phase. So the pushing, and then the eccentric phase is the lowering. That's where you're coming back down. And most people at the gym that I see, they're moving pretty quick. Like they're probably doing half a second for one, half a second for the other. And so they're moving weights really, really quickly. Not only that, they're jumping around and throwing things and all kinds of stuff. And I see people getting injured. What this argument says is let's move really, really slowly, counting to like some could be like 10. So think about that, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like it's a really long set. But by moving slowly, you have eliminated the risk of injury. People can't really get injured if you move that slowly. I just interviewed a personal trainer on my podcast who has now done 20,000 of these sessions with his people. And I asked him, of those 20,000 sessions that you've done, how many people have gotten hurt? And he said exactly 0. Like you can't get hurt doing this. The catch is you have to push yourself to a certain intensity. And the intensity is different than what people think. Most people think of high intensity exercise and they think high intensity interval training, which is HIIT. And that is like intervals where you're jumping around, like I said, or you're on, airdyne bikes, and you're going really hard for maybe 10 or 20 seconds and taking a break and repeating that. This is an intensity, but it's more in the muscles. And I would say like you can nasal breathe through the whole thing. But as you're pushing this weight that's progressively getting heavier and heavier and heavier, you get to this point of like, you get a little anxious or you're shaking a little bit and you're reaching the most that your body is actually truly capable of.
Articulation.
What's that?
Articulation.
Yeah.
Where the muscle trembles.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Technical term. I love it. Yeah. And people, again, they have this like anxiety and it's really challenging. But if you can push yourself to that level, the signal that you're sending to the body is that your current level of strength was not enough. You were pushing something that eventually made you stop. And that will create a compensation in the body where the body says, okay, well, we don't really have a choice. He pushed this weight. He couldn't do it as much as he wanted to do. So we don't have a choice. We've got to add muscle. We've got to make our bones stronger. We've got to add more connective tissue. A lot of people associate strength training, properly done strength training, with like bodybuilding. And, women think it's like bodybuilding. They don't want to get bulky. We hear that argument all the time. And it's like strength training will not make you bulky unless you're taking chemical enhancements and like training several hours a day. Everybody should strength train. I would strength train a 12-year-old the same way I would strength train a 95-year-old in a safe method that made them stronger and helped their bones stay strong so that they can experience a life like you perfectly described. I live long and I drop dead, and I do it with good health and good vitality, and I can carry my grandkids and a pot of soup to feed my family. That's what proper strength training can do. And so again, if you can find a methodology that eliminates the risk of injury, that can force the body into like really testing its limits, and then you give it time, you have to recover. And so for some people that could be 2 or 3 days. For other people that are more and more advanced, you actually need more and more recovery time because your workouts are going to be so intense. You might not do one of those workouts again in 5 days, 7 days. I know people that do that type of workout every 2 weeks because it takes them that long to actually recover from. So that's kind of how my thinking is really evolved and changed over time.
Yeah. So I know you were at the, I still call it Low Carb USA, the Symposium on Metabolic Health at the weekend. And you saw Dr. Ben Biciccio.
Yeah.
So his smart training is basically that you're working really slowly until you physically can't, and you should be able to do that within a minute to 90 seconds. You should get to that point.
That's right.
If you're still going longer than 90 seconds, then you need a heavier weight, and if you can't do 30 seconds, then you need a bit lighter weight until you can get past 30 seconds.
Yeah, I love that. I actually got to have a conversation with him. He's a wonderful human and he's in great shape, as you could tell. And yeah, that's what he recommends. He actually had the book that I'm referring to with him, Body by Science. And so we talked a little bit about those principles. I told him how much it changed my career. And he lamented the fact that he was like, I kind of came up with most of this stuff first. I've been doing this for 50 years. They kind of did this book about it. He was okay with it. And yeah, that is the same kind of stuff that he recommends.
Yeah, was that the book he had on stage?
What book did he have on stage? Probably. It's I have a copy here for people that are watching it. It's
I
just
think
called Body by Science.
it was quite a big book. I couldn't see what it was, but
I couldn't either, and I was on the front row.
yeah. Oh, cool. But it was a big book, wasn't it? So yeah, maybe I need to get that one. So so you would have seen also Jeff Cotterman there. Don't know if you know who he was.
What was the name again, Jeff?
Cotterman. Okay. Anyway, he was in the audience. I did a day with Brian in one of the breakout sessions at lunchtime. So I don't know if you saw him.
Oh, great. I don't know that I did. I'm bummed if I miss that.
Yeah. So I'm training to be a personal trainer with Jeff based on
Cool.
Dr. Bembo's work. So it's all around
wow.
smart training.
Congratulations. I actually didn't know that about you. You're going to love it. It's so much fun. I love every single day.
Yeah, I think I will. I just trying to balance a job, a podcast, coaching clients, and learning a new thing. So it's taken me a while.
Slightly busy?
Yeah, slightly busy. And prioritizing sleep, trying to prioritize sleep.
Trying to is probably the right word.
Yeah, so I do try and get to bed at a reasonable time.
Yeah, well, good for you. You got a lot going on.
Yeah. So tell people what your average food day looks like, and then maybe we'll go on to your exercise. So let's do food first.
Yeah.
What does the day look like for you?
Yes. So, yeah, great question. When I first started carnivore, I was pretty much doing exclusively bone-in ribeyes. I had a good source that was really inexpensive for bone-in ribeyes. I would do 1 or 2 of those every single day. I did OMAD, so I was doing 1 meal a day. Typically, I would eat dinner, fast through the entire next day. I felt really good for a long time doing that, but over time, I started to notice, first of all, my taste for steak completely dropped out. Like this food that was like delicious for every single meal, all of a sudden, like I couldn't tolerate it anymore. And to this day, I almost hardly ever have it, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I realized like signs of a lowering metabolic rate. I started to notice in myself. So a really obvious one is your hands and feet, especially, will feel kind of cold. Your energy will be a little bit lower. Your desire to work out, your motivation to work out will typically wane and be a little bit lower. I started to notice some of those things in myself and thought it would be a good idea to abandon the 1 meal a day and eat a second or maybe even a third meal, just to try to get more calories and more protein in. And that certainly helped out quite a bit and really worked. And so I still do the coffee in the morning, and I'm still on adding about a half a tablespoon of butter and MCT oil. I had some decaf while I was at the symposium and didn't always have the choice for what coffee I was consuming. And I can say, like, I don't know that I derive a lot of benefit from the caffeine as much as I derive benefit from the butter and the MCT oil. I think for me, that just really helps my brain to turn on and be really alert and awake. And so I still notice benefit with that. I'll also add a little bit of salt to my coffee, which is a little bit weird, but something I really enjoy. My first meal in the day really depends on timing. So not 2 days in my week are the same. There's always differences and people shifting around as far as schedule. So some days I might have access to food at 10 a.m. Some days it might be 2 p.m. or anywhere kind of in between is where I target my first meal, which is usually hard-boiled eggs. I'll have, depending on the day, maybe 10 hard-boiled eggs ready, and I'll just see like what I'm in the mood for. Some days I can eat 8 and they're delicious and tasty. Some days I get to 5 and I'm just like, okay, I'm done. Like another egg does not sound that good. And then normally my dinner is going to be around.
Do you add fat to your eggs or just the eggs on their own?
Depends. Great question. Depends on how I make them. So if I'm doing hard-boiled eggs, I don't. I'll just do like a little bit of like Tabasco sauce just to give it a little bit of flavor. I've done salt on them before. It's a little bit more of a mess. But that works great. If on the weekends or sometimes at night, if I'm doing scrambled eggs, I will definitely add a pretty good amount of butter. I have recently hugely gotten into Formula One. So I'm jealous that you're in England and you're talking about Turkey and all these great places that have Grand Prix that I would love to go attend. And so, this last year I've gotten super into the sport, and the timing of when the sessions happen for me here in America is more like kind of morning to late morning, where it would be like afternoon for you. And so on the weekends where there's a Grand Prix, I make what are called my quali eggs. And so while I'm watching qualifying, I'll mix up anywhere from 16 to like 20 eggs. It's a lot of eggs. And I'll put almost like a half a stick of butter in the pan. And as I'm watching the session, I slowly just kind of turn the eggs on medium heat, and I will eat that. And that will definitely be my only meal of the day. I will be absolutely stuffed from that meal. So I just have to make sure I get enough calories and get enough fat when I do that. But that's just, on weekends when I have a little bit more time. Night times, generally speaking, during the week, it's whatever. I try to keep on hand different sources of fats and proteins. So I might at any given time have a little bit of bacon. Maybe I've cooked up some chicken thighs or chicken breasts and I have those on hand. I definitely always want to have some type of red meat, whether it's burger patties or a roast of some kind. Recently, I've kind of been alternating between, around here it's called sirloin and chuck steak. I don't know if it's the same in the UK. I'll kind of alternate between those. One's a little bit more fatty, the other's a little bit more lean. And I really encourage my clients, I try to do this myself. When you are intuitive eating on the normal standard American diet, you're going to intuitively eat pies and wash it down with soda, and you're going to have cookies. That was my experience. Like, that's intuitive eating. If you allow yourself to eat what your body wants, it's going to want the most ultra processed, delicious food that you can get, and you're going to be sick. If you go more towards like a carnivore style, animal based, ketogenic type lifestyle, I do believe you can eat intuitively with those parameters. And some days fish will sound really good, and other days it sounds terrible. And some days chicken sounds good. It doesn't often sound that good to me. And so I just, when it comes to dinner time, I just see kind of what looks good, and maybe I'll crack a few eggs in, a cast iron skillet with a little bit of the chuck roast. And it's just, my pictures that I post of my food are not very well plated. Looks like an ooey gooey mess with a lot of butter and eggs and whatever else, but it's absolutely delicious.
Yeah. My food looks terrible, especially if you've cooked the steak in the pan and then you've added your fried eggs into it and it's got all these black bits all over it, and it doesn't look good, but it tastes very nice.
One of my friends kept posting that, like, dude, your food looks terrible. Like, why are you not plating your food more? And so the next picture I posted was like a half an egg, and I tried to lay it on the plate in a certain way, and a little tiny piece of steak. And I went out and picked like grass out of my yard and put it on the plate and tried to arrange it. Like, is this any better for you? Like,
yeah, no, my food always looks a mess.
That's great.
And that's why I don't post very often my food, unless sometimes I do and it's still a mess. And my son says, "Oh, who wants to look at that?" And it's just like, well, this is just what I'm eating. This is just to show you what I'm eating. It's not supposed to look good.
Oh, well, I, for one, think it looks delicious, and I will eat what you eat any day.
So as we come to the end of our time, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think I should have asked you, or anything that you want to tell the listeners that
my goodness,
touched on?
That's a really great question. I don't think I have anything to add. This was a really fun conversation. I hope people understand that, like I said earlier, and as you well understand, like, this isn't something where you like arrive. You're never like there. It's not like you get to a certain space and you got there, you hit your goal, and it's over. Like, I have to deal with endurance athletes that I coach all the time to help them with like depression when they're getting to an event that they've trained for months and months and months. All of a sudden the event is here. It's today. It comes and goes in a flash. And then they like don't even know what to do with themselves the next day. And it's like, if you look at everything as this journey and you're just kind of moving towards things, I think it's a little easier to accept that we can make lifestyle changes that pay us back in ways that we can't calculate financially. Like what you're describing, paddleboarding with your kids, great example. Like there's so many people who cannot have that experience because they were told the wrong things. They were told to count calories and jump on a treadmill and watch the calorie tracker on the treadmill. And they tried to be healthy and it didn't work. I don't blame people for giving up. Like, you're getting terrible advice. Coca-Cola wants you to exercise. Like, that's why they say on their vending machines, balance what you eat, drink, and do. And they promote and fund and spend millions of dollars trying to get people to exercise. They want you to drink their products and think you can go on a walk and walk it off. And it just doesn't work. So all of us have so much against us, and the medical system and the food system, and they're making the most enticing, delicious combinations of fat and salt and sugar that are absolutely addictive, and people are getting addicted. And again, they don't know what to do. So I hope somebody understands that this is a process. Start today. Just have more eggs than you normally would. Have a little bit more steak than you normally would. Find some activity that is, maybe just on the border of uncomfortable, but is something you can do. Maybe that's walking to the mailbox or walking to the end of the street. I want people to have hope that, some of the people you see at these conferences are in amazing shape. They look great. They're very smart, but they didn't do that yesterday. Like, this is a process for all of us. We're all learning. We're all trying. And I want people to have hope and be optimistic that they can implement some of these small changes and move in that direction and see how you feel and keep adjusting. And eventually you'll just continue feeling better and better and have exactly the life that you described that I think all of us are after.
Yeah. And one of the things I forgot to ask you, because I said I was going to ask you and I forgot, was what's your exercise look like throughout a week? So you do some paddleboarding, but just go through, because I think people think that it needs to be, and I don't know, maybe you think this as well, then it needs to be something for an hour and you've got a set time and you've got to do it so many times a week. What do you do?
This is a very embarrassing question to answer. As a personal trainer, as a personal trainer, I get asked this question all the time. You must love working out. You must work out all the time. Your wife is very active. She must work out all the time. And it's pretty shocking if somebody were to see how little I actually spend working out. My main priority, if you can debatable whether you can call it a workout, I'm going to call it movement, is walking. That is a non-negotiable for me. My average in the summertime is usually around 20,000 steps. I like to try to find creative ways to move and get more steps in my day. And so, several years ago, I started parking at the very furthest parking spot in a parking lot. I always walk through it. I find that it's even faster than trying to fight for parking spots. And you multiply that with how many trips to the store and how many steps is that? How much fresh air is that? So definitely try to walk. That slows down a little bit in the wintertime, but I'll try to walk several miles in a day. And again, I like people to be creative about it. So when I'm walking, I'm doing my research for my podcast, or maybe I'm taking phone interviews or doing my coaching over the phone. Anybody could incorporate that. I try to do that mostly in the morning. Something that I absolutely love and is definitely non-negotiable. I will paddleboard every few weeks, take my board up and just go paddle around the lake. It's about 2 miles around, so it takes me about 45 minutes to an hour, which is nice. In the summertime, like it is here at the time of recording, the Salt Lake Valley is beautiful, and I like to be on my bike as much as possible. So if I've got a client that's 10 miles away and I've got the time, I'll just jump on my bike rather than drive and get there and drive back. And I've gotten a nice bike ride in. And I don't know what this is, but in the summertime, my desire to strength train really kind of falls out. And I don't know what that is, but I might go that 2 weeks without really doing much as far as strength training goes. And if I do, it might be as simple as me grabbing a resistance band with some handles and walking to the park and just doing like a few sets of maybe a chest press or a row or a pull down. And that might be sufficient. The other habit that I picked up last year that I never stopped was I do 100 push-ups a day. I try to, break that up however I like during the day, but that's really all that I do. And I think you're right that a lot of people have this idea of like health and fitness being something you've got to work through and suffer through, and it's going to take hours, and you got to hit the gym, and the time spent, watching that calorie tracker on the treadmill. It's just, it's so crazy. But that idea makes people a lot of money, and it makes gyms a lot of money, and personal trainers like myself make a lot of money when people think you have to exercise a lot of times every single week and follow certain meal plans. You just really don't need to. It can be maybe not easy, but it can be very simple. And so that's what my kind of activity looks like. Other than that, I think that nutrition is the most important thing for most people. I think movement would be maybe the next important thing. And then it's like you mentioned, like all the other things, being really careful to defend our sleep and our sleep habits. We adopted a sauna last year. I sit in the sauna every single night before bed. I love it. I try to get some cold exposure in the wintertime, or try to jump in lakes. You try to, do what you can to be mindful and control your stress. And those things are all really important for quality of life as well. But as far as exercise goes, movement goes, that's about what I do.
Yeah. And sort of snacky movement is just as good as a full workout.
I love that concept. And yeah, I think the latest research is really strongly showing that it matters less kind of when you get it in or how long your exercise is, unless you're training for something very specific. I agree. If you think of your workouts as snacks and you can get some in here and some in there, and if you can do 10 squats in the bathroom, on a break at work, great. Like that's awesome. Like that's, a fantastic way to help get to your goals.
Yeah. I think it's even more important to do that rather than sitting at a desk. Somebody's a desk job, sitting at a desk all day and then going to do an hour or doing the hour beforehand. It's actually, you're better off not doing the hour beforehand, do some work, and every half an hour, take a break, take 2 minutes and do some jumping jacks, or while the kettle's boiling, do some press ups, or do something during the day and move. And I think that's more important, because even though we were talking off air and I was saying I stand all day, but sometimes I'm standing still, and I do move when I'm standing, because I'm always, you've probably seen me, I've been bouncing from side to side, so I'm always lifting a leg up, and so I am moving, but not enough probably. So every half an hour, taking a walk, going wherever you go. So I'm just over here in my office, 10 yards away is a toilet, but I never use it. I always go upstairs to go to the toilet because I want to move. And I think those things are more important than actually doing some sort of formal exercise. So
I love that.
Exercise would be good as well. And getting outside in the sunshine and walking would be brilliant.
Yep. It would. And yeah, that's how we evolved. And we were always, we weren't always like working, the way that we think indigenous tribes would have worked. Like we had pretty chill, lives as we were living, but there always was some form of movement, whether it was like fixing a tool, walking around, physical contact. Like so much of that was part of our lives that is not possible now. And yeah, that would be ideal. I would love most people to get outside and, get fresh air and sunshine and all of that great stuff. Some people, you know what it's like. You have a job and it's tough to get outside. But even then, like, I remember going up to one of my managers and saying, look, we're doing this meeting for an hour every single week in your office. We don't use anything in your office. Why are we doing this here? Let's go outside. Can we do a walking meeting? And it even, like, to me, kind of changed the energy where, like, two people were facing each other inside. He was behind a desk. Like, it feels kind of condescending. Now we're, like, side by side discussing issues and problems. It feels like we're, like, cooperating and working through them together. And now, again, we've got a 3-mile walk in outside. It was brilliant. Like, people, you can find things like that. You can do things like that. Like, be pragmatic and find creative ways. I love the bathroom trick. Just use the upstairs bathroom. That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So tell people how they can get in contact with you, how they can find you on social media and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We weren't great at like doing branding for social media when we first started, and it's kind of a hodgepodge. So the best place for everybody to go to find us is you just go to our website, which is myboundlessbody.com. That has everything. So that's got all our social media. You can find what exactly my handle is on Twitter and Instagram and the usual ones. Most active on Facebook and Instagram. But we also have the podcast. You can find the podcast on the website. We've got a YouTube channel in case you want to watch our interviews. We'll post content every single day. So I'll either be posting full interviews that we do or just a segment of an interview that we do that's maybe a 10-15 minute clip. We do that every day. But the website is the best place to find us, which is myboundlessbody.com. And on the first page, like the very first thing you see is a book now button. And if anybody wants to do a complimentary 30-minute session to chat, to visit, to help, we can maybe help diagnose things, talk about nutrition or movement or anything that we've discussed today. We offer that to anybody. And it's been such a joy to connect with people all over the world and discuss all kinds of different things related to health and fitness. So yeah, the website's best. And again, that's myboundlessbody.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. So before we finish, can you leave us with your 3 top tips?
And this can be anything health and fitness.
Anything you like. It could be something you've already mentioned. It could be something else. Anything you want to do. Okay.
I will go in what I would consider the order of priority ascending. So I'll go from my third, then the second, and then the first. The third thing I would recommend is move. Be active. Find ways to move that are interesting and engaging. I think your story with paddleboarding is a wonderful example. I'm trying something new. I don't know if I'm going to fall into this giant ocean or not. But again, think of those memories, like the value of those memories. You can't put a price tag on. And so, yeah, when we say that, exercise isn't great for weight control, it is very great for the brain. And that's what our brains are for. So make sure you're moving in any way you like. Walking is a great way to start. My second most important one would be move towards something in the animal-based world. Meat and animal products are the healthiest and most bioavailable foods that we can possibly eat, and we don't eat enough of them. So whether, you're vegetarian, whether you're vegan, I would really encourage people to find ways to get more animal products in their diets, wherever you are on that spectrum. And then that will help crowd out a lot of the other stuff that really makes people very sick. For some people, certain vegetables can make them very sick. For most of us, it's really just ultra processed food makes us really, really sick as humans. And so focus on fats and proteins, eat those together, especially red meat is the best thing you could possibly have. And I would say the number one tip I would tell people is we're here for a shockingly short amount of time. We're not here forever. Enjoy your life. Find things that you enjoy. I would strongly argue that prioritizing your health and fitness will make you happier, will make you appreciate things more, will give you more gratitude. But anything that you can do to smile, enjoy the people around you, know that you're here temporarily, relax about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we stress about the stupidest stuff all the time. Just give yourself permission to relax, understand that health and fitness is a journey. It is a process. Be okay with that. And more than anything, just enjoy your life while you're here.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that one. Thank you.
Of course.
Casey, thank you for being with us tonight. It's been brilliant talking to you. And you talk really fast.
I that is the biggest criticism I get all the time. I know. I think I listen to my podcast really fast. So between that and just getting like really excited about this kind of stuff, it means that I talk really, really fast. And so, yeah, every now and again, we'll get a review that's like, the content is really good, but the host talks way too fast. I'm sorry.
I know I'm a really slow speaker, so I really speak slowly and think about maybe I don't think about what I'm saying. But
you clearly are much more mindful about the words you use than somebody like me who's just plowing through as many words as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been brilliant.
Thank you so very much. It's been such an honor.
It would be great if you could support us through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/fabulously keto and you can choose the monthly amount you wish.
Can you recommend a guest we can interview? If you can, click on the link in the show notes to send us your recommendation.
Would you like to join our Facebook group? Search for Fabulously Keto on Facebook. Our Facebook page is called Fabulously Keto and you can follow us there. Or you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle is Fabulously Keto. Or follow us on Instagram, Fabulously Keto 1. Did you enjoy the show? Let us know you listened by tagging us in your Insta story or Instagram post using the handle Fabulously Keto 1 and the hashtag TFKP. All the links are on the website and in the show notes.
If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, click the subscribe button. Reviews help us to be found and reach new listeners. Please leave a review of our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We appreciate you taking the time and read them all.
Disclaimer. The information in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast can be taken as advice. Whether our guests are doctors, healthcare professionals or not, they're only sharing their own opinions and stories, and this does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. It's always best to seek professional medical advice should you wish to make any changes to your current medication or treatments. Also speak to your own doctor if you have any concerns about your health or you wish to make lifestyle changes, especially if you're taking medication.
So thank you so very much for listening to this bonus episode of my recent appearance on the Fabulously Keto Podcast with Jackie Fletcher. Like I said in the introduction, be on the lookout for episode 539 of Boundless Body Radio, which will feature her and her show. Be sure to subscribe, go and follow them, give them a rating and review. And as always, if you haven't done so for our show, we would really, really appreciate a rating and review. It really helps us get this message out to more people. And as always, thank you so very much for listening to Boundless Body Radio.